So who wants more of this? Yeah. One of the reasons why we buy real estate, right? I mean, we can have many reasons, but this is one of the side effects. We get to create wealth, and in doing so, we have to be very smart and diligent on how we analyze properties. And like I said, when we first started investing properties, and when I first started doing the numbers, I didn't realize some of the things I'm going to be talking about in just a moment on how last month's rent is handled and things like that. And it was kind of a pleasant surprise. And I didn't know about it because nobody had told me about it. So here's hopefully that opportunity. You get to learn something here, or you're reminded of something that you've already been taught in the past. So cash flow boost. Close and get instant cash. And I'm not talking about going to the pawn shop, Mario. Not at all. We are going to be talking about buying a property with a tenant already in it. So one of the first things that I do when I'm preparing offers for clients, and I'll say this, listen, the closing date that you choose can have a significant impact on what the banks will do for you, and also what you can put into your own pocket. And I always like choosing the 5th to close on in a month, and I'll explain why in a second here. When we close on the 5th, what hopefully happened on the 1st of the month with that tenant? They're paid their rent. And who did it go to? The current owner, right? Well, when we do a closing, the lawyers will do what they call an adjustment. And the remainder of the month, the 25 days that are left in the month, for instance, gets credited to you. It's called an adjustment. And lawyers work on adjustments all the time. If you closed a property recently, you'll remember that. It's kind of like a spreadsheet of some numbers, and he might have explained it to you, but you kind of glazed over it because you're excited about closing on the property. Well, this is one of the items that's in there, okay? The rental credit coming back to you. So that's huge, right? Because you didn't receive that rent on the 1st of the month. Somebody else did. But now you're going to reap the rewards of it for the remainder of the 25 remaining days. So how does this affect my mortgage, or how can my mortgage affect the closing of a property? Better yet, how can the mortgage affect the money I put into my pocket, right? Because that's what we're here to do. I want to move my mortgage payment date. When typically does your mortgage come out? The 1st. Why? Sounds good. That's just what the banks do, right? And typically, I say most everybody, there's some proper English. Usually everybody pays their mortgage on the 1st of every month, because that's just what the banks do. Well, did you know that there's a lot of lenders out there that will allow you to choose just about any date throughout the month? And it's all you simply have to do is ask. I'd like my mortgage to come out on the 5th. Why would I choose the 5th? Yeah, 5 days. Because what happened on the 1st? Somebody paid me, hopefully, right? And in a perfect world, somebody pays me on the 1st or before every month. But we all know this isn't a perfect world. And sometimes on the 2nd, you might receive that mortgage payment, or the 3rd, or the 4th, or the 5th, or sometimes even longer. But at least this gives me a 5-day buffer, right? The next thing I got to do is our first mortgage payment, our first full mortgage payment. When does that come out? When we close on a property? The next month, that's right. Our first full mortgage payment isn't due the day we close on a property, correct? It's typically the month after. Mortgages on rents are different. Rent, I pay Quinton $2,000 to live in one of his units. It's a nice unit, Quinton. And then I get to live there for 30 days. Same process. I get to live there for another 30 days. Mortgages, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the term is you actually live in your homes in arrears. You live there for 30 days, then you pay the mortgage payment. You live there for another 30 days, then you pay that mortgage payment. So in a sense, I am not paying my first mortgage payment until the month after, or 30 days after, thereabouts, right? And in fact, what I want to do, I'm going to call up my lender and say, I'm closing on this new property. In fact, I'd like my first full mortgage payment to be even a month after my first payment. So if I close August 5th, my first payment perhaps is September 5th. I want to choose October 5th, if they will allow me. And some will. Some will also say, that's fine. However, we're going to ask you to make an interest adjustment or pay the interest on that mortgage. So if my mortgage, easy math, was $1,200 and $1,000 was going to interest, $200 was principal, I'd have to pay that $1,000. But perhaps I'm able to keep back $200 into my pocket, right? Are you with me? Which, in a sense, we're saying our first full mortgage payment is not paid 1 month, but when? 2 months later from when we close. Here's the cool part. And I'm going to show you these numbers. Because what have we done? We've received rent based on what? Almost 3 months worth of rent, right? Before we've actually had a full mortgage payment. So here's what the numbers would look like. I close on August 5th. The rent for this scenario is $2,000 a month. We get our 25 days of August, so that works out to $1,600. September 1st is a rent payment, $2,000. October 1st is a rent payment, $2,000. So in a sense, we've collected, or on paper, we have $5,600, right? What's not on here? Yes. I couldn't fit it. No. Last month's rent. And this was one of those surprises with the first time we closed. I wasn't aware of it, or perhaps I was told and I had forgotten. If you have a good landlord and a good tenant, what do they have on file? Last month's rents. And where does that come? That always stays with the ownership of the property. So I may have received another $2,000 or may have been credited $2,000 on closing. So in essence, I have what? Not $5,600, but $7,600, right? Before I've done what? Paid any mortgage, right? So to recap on this specific here, mortgage tactics are a big component of this, right? We've received 25 days worth of rent in August. Hopefully we've moved our mortgage payment to the 5th of the month. However, we might have made an interest adjustment. So then we might have some money going out. That's okay. But our first full payment, hopefully, is August 5th. Not all lenders will allow you to do this, but there are some that will. And if you have one that will, why not take advantage of this, right? So, recap this again, right? We've collected 3 months' rent, $5,600 in this scenario. What has that done? What are you laughing at? Hey, it could be something, right? We've created a reserve fund. We've created Quinton's pool fund, whatever it might be. Vacation fund, but we put money in our pockets, not in the bank's pocket, right? We've used the strategies that are available to us to our advantage, right? And perhaps it's allowed us to, as I said here on the screen, cover our closing costs. That will by far cover the closing costs, not including land transfer tax, obviously, right? But the lawyers, what else do we have? Inspections, appraisals, any due diligence around that. Maybe we need to renovate a little bit at one of the units or whatever it might be. There's something there to start with, right? Absolutely. It allows us to get ahead of the game. Do you think you can do this on vacant? Yes.
So it's a legal rented property. Is the expectation as part of the closing adjustment that there is a last month's rent including in that adjustment?
Not. So, on the back to the negotiation part of it, that would probably be in the offer, and we would write it up. Last month's rent is to be credited on the purchase, or to be credited towards the buyer. Yeah, does that answer your question? Perfect. Great. Yeah.
I was just going to say that normally we would ask for a tenant acknowledgement, which the tenant then signs that they live there, they pay that much rent, and if they've given a last month's rent, and that there's no dispute between the landlord and themselves.
Absolutely. When we have a nice checklist, which is a schedule with the offer, and as soon as it becomes part of the offer, guess who gets to see it? Obviously the lawyers, but most importantly the bank. Because the bank this is the way the bank can verify there's actually a tenant there, and they've been there for X amount of time, and they're actually paying and have last month's rent. It's a good point. Thank you. Can we do this on vacant properties? In a sense, we can, and this is how I would do it. I'd ask for the right to show and market the property before I actually close on it. So we firmed up on the property but we're still waiting another month or two, whatever that period may be, to close on it. And we're getting permission from the seller to market a vacant unit. And we've also got permission from the seller to actually visit the property to show the vacant unit, right? This allows us to obviously hopefully line up a tenant before closing, but have them move in just after closing. Perhaps the unit needs some cleanup or paint, whatever it might be. But obviously that's how we would want to look at it. And back to our earlier point in the tenant acknowledgement, what do banks want from us? They want leases or tenant acknowledgements, right? They want to make sure somebody's actually living there. And if we're buying vacant properties, this is one way that we can do that. One way we can prove to the bank that we have a lease in hand, even though it may not start until the day after closing or whatever that might be. That usually, hopefully, satisfies the bank or the lender's needs. So, there you go. Cash in the pockets, right? Again, these are all strategies that they're out there, but maybe we're just not aware of them. And maybe we can just, fine-tune them a little bit so we can have them benefit us more specifically than anyone else, like the bank, right? Because the banks will always do one thing. They'll take their mortgage payment out every month, right? Tenants may not pay you every month, but the mortgage payment's already coming. It's already lined up to go. So there you go. Hopefully that sheds some light on it, right? We good?